Okay, so what I would like to do is go over one of the features on the GL2400, and that is the test tone feature. And one of the things that you can do with it, and I'm going to get my little paper clip so that I can turn that off and on. I just had it here. I don't know what happened to it. And those things are so small it probably went flying somewhere. But basically, you'll notice that when I push in this little blue button with a paper clip, there it is, I just found it. It's so small it's hard to see. But you basically use a paper clip, pushing in this button right here, and you'll see how the test tone goes off. Okay? And I can route that test tone anywhere I want. Right now I got it on the left and right out. I could put it through the subgroupings. Right now I'm sending it through the subgroups. And just understanding that you can do that, this can be a very useful tool in balancing out or calibrating your outputs. And if I bring my faders down, you'll notice I've got little marks on pieces of tape that are slightly different from the unity gain 0 marks. Now those are calibration marks. So when we talk about gain structure, we also need to talk about the calibration of our final outputs so that you don't have one side hotter than the other, or if you do an insert between the left and rights here with a stereo compressor, that you are driving both sides equally. And this is, when I last checked this is a 3 decibel down difference from this one over here. So if I was to set these perfectly at the original 0 point marks, this would actually be 3 decibels louder. Okay? So, and what I did to verify is I used a digital meter, and the digital meter, I'm not too concerned about, it's like 1.2 volt, 2 something volts. I'm not too concerned about getting it perfect. I'm more concerned about finding out which one of these is higher than the other and then putting it at 0, and then bringing up this output so that they are equal. Okay? And in doing that, right now I could route it out the left and right, make sure that one of these, or let's say if I was starting out to do this test, you could put them both so that you're looking straight down from the top. You can see they're both perfectly, I'll get it really as close as possible, they're both perfectly at the unity gain mark right there. But if I go up to my test tone, I've already determined that these lights are very accurate. I've put a voltmeter on them, and if this light is a little bit lower than that one, that is a true indicator that the right side is a little hotter. So what I would do, I'm going to set my left side so it just comes on, and I'm turning my oscillator, and I'm on my 1 kilohertz right there, and that's with the button in, and I'm getting it to where it just turns on the left side. Okay, now when I've got it there, I already know that my right side's a little hot, so I'm going to bring this down, and watching my meters as I bring the right side up, when it just barely lights up, as it did with the left side, trying to get this to focus better. There, right there. You can see how it just lit up, and I'm just barely pushing the fader, like just, micro movements. So when I come down, you can see that I'm going to move my light over here. If we look very carefully, notice how it's slightly off. Okay? But my marks that I made in ink on that piece of tape are accurate. Okay? Because with the right side slightly down, my meters read perfectly, okay? And like I said, I've already checked the LED outputs and determined that they are putting out equivalent voltage when I turn this knob and I just have them barely going to 0. So see how, so like right now, the right side is just a little bit more. So if I bring this down, and I mean to tell you, it's just, look how small amounts that I'm moving this. Okay, so I'll bring this back up. Okay, right now they're both coming on. The right side is a little bit weaker. So if I bring it, and you can see that it's slightly down. Okay, but my position of this light, trying to get it so that there's no shadow. Okay, doing what I can to make sure there's no shadow on this light. Okay, you can see where they're sitting relative to these faders. Okay, so I mean, I am really just barely moving the faders to get the calibration right, okay? But it's going to be a more accurate left and right output than had I left it here at the, as you see the black mark on the right. If I left it on that mark, it's actually not correct. It's hotter on the right side by 3 decibels. And if you go up here, you can see it's showing that in my LED outputs. And it even becomes more pronounced as I start turning it up. Okay. Yeah, it's off 3 decibels. So bringing this thing down, and you can see how just right there, so it lines up with the left. And again, I have to take this light and move it over so I don't have shadows, and then I can't control my focus on this phone. There you go. You can see how accurate I have to have it on that ink, and you'll see up here at the top that the LEDs are perfect. Okay, and like I said, I've already determined that the LEDs on this console are spot on with a voltmeter, that the left and the right side puts out the same voltage, and I can trust my voltmeter. The other thing I'll do with this test tone is we can run it through the groups 1 through 4. I push it in right there, and I come over here to my groups, and I bring up group 1, and you'll see that it's a little bit lower, so I'm going to bring it up until it just turns on the 0, okay? Just turns on the 0. And the other thing you can check is the right and left. At this point, it's basically a pan knob. When you push in the group 1 to left and right, you have this pan knob. And I can just barely turn this and get this thing to balance out better, okay? And that's something you can do to get, like, sometimes you'll have a dB louder on the left and the right. You might need to turn that just a smidgen. So anyway, you look at where this one's set, and that's a good spot. And it's so now I bring up the next one, and the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to mute this one, and I'm going to bring up the next one next to it, which is sub 2. And again, I have to move my light, trying to keep these shadows off, and it's really becoming a chore. There, that's better. So we look at where my shadows are, and now if I look straight down on where I put my mark, okay, and then I come over here and I look at my meters, you'll see that they're slightly off. So taking this pan knob and getting them so that they calibrate out perfectly, and it looks like it could go up. It looks like the mark that I put on there, my fader needs to go just a little higher. And I mean, we're talking just micro moves. Okay, there it goes. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it to where it just just lights stuff up. And as you can see, the right side is lighting up faster than the left side. So there's a slight imbalance. I mean, it's so close. It's not like, it's not terrible, but I can make it just a little bit better by adjusting my pan here ever so slightly. Okay. I mean, it's right at that flat spot. But anyway, it's a way of determining if your board is calibrated, you know, are your left and right pans on or off, and then, you know, getting the subs to put out equal voltage, you know, and I've already remarked these. Then you can see how this one is slightly higher than the original mark, and it's about a half a decibel. And then we bring up, here I'm going to do number 4. Just grabbing that one. You can see it's slightly lower. So I'm making sure it's perfectly aligned, and we go up here, and it is, yeah. So that I've already calibrated this, but anyway, it basically, the test tone can be used to calibrate the board itself, and this is something I don't see in any of the YouTube videos. So I thought I would do a video on that. So that was calibrating the left and right, and then your subs, okay? And I also did a voltmeter on the mono out. So once you have these pulled up, then you got your mono out, and there's no special button to push to check the mono out unless you hit the after fader level, and that may or may not allow you to get it calibrated. It might. I haven't checked the voltage to see if it's matching up, but if we look at the individual channels, I can see right here that you can see that that one was a little bit lower, like that. So I don't know if that's that big a deal. This is where it might be off a little bit. Like I already know that these two are very accurate when I put my voltmeter on it, but these guys down here below might be off. So if we just barely get these to light up, and then I take my test tone and I move it up and down, I mean, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. Now I'm sending it to my left and right output, and I'm double checking this. Okay, it's a little bit hot on the left. So I go down here, showing a little bit hot on the left. I mean, I'm probably moving these like 1/10 of 1 degree on the knob rotation. There. And I'm using my faders to adjust it. Yeah, so there, you can see I'm moving the test tone up and down. You can see that both LEDs are lighting at the same time. And I go up here, and I'm getting both LEDs to light at the same time as I'm turning this knob. Just, you can't even see me turn it because I'm turning it so slightly. Okay. And with those being in balance like that, again, we go back to our faders, and you can see that this one is a little bit lower because it's calibrated. And then on this final output, right here, if I just undo my right and left, and then I hit my after fader level, okay, but I'm gonna, let me see if, what I'm trying to do right now is to get it to read the monitor out. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna, there's absolutely no change there. So actually there is, because what I did is I hit, okay, there with the button up, there's my my meters. Now here I'm going to pull it back so we can get a better view of what I'm doing here. So I'm going to check my final mono out. So I hit the after fader level, and you can see that it's pulling up the main mono out. And if I bring this back up to where it reads equivalent to the left and right out, see the little red light right there? Every time you see that come on, that means that I'm hitting my after fader level on my main out, not the right and left, but the mono out. Okay. So I'm going to bring up to where this just barely comes on. Okay. Just barely comes on. And I'm going to make sure they're both perfectly, barely coming on. There we go. I just brought up the left side just ever so slightly. So right now, I'm going to hit what the after fader level is on. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to reset the left and right faders. Okay, so it just barely comes on at that 0 point. Okay, and then I'm going to hit my after fader level, and then we're going to bring up the mono out exactly the same spot as the right and left, and you'll see that it's, in order to get the voltage the same, it's completely different. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back to my settings, and I know that I don't want to move my light again. The lighting's not that great in here. So there's my calibration. That's my calibration. Okay, and I'm going to undo this and go back and take one more look at this. I'm going to turn down. Again, I just want it to barely turn on at the 0. Okay, I'm going to turn up the left side there. So now I'm going to do after fader level, and I'm going to bring this up until I see the 0 just barely turn on. There it is. Bring up the left side. Actually, no, because that's a completely different thing. Okay, so I'm going to bring down. It's extremely touchy. I mean, I'm like moving this just micro movements. But what we're doing is calibrating. So now we do the after fader level. Right there. And I'm switching it back to left and right, and then after fader level. And if we look closely, we can see that my mono out looks like it's a little low, okay? Because I trust those meters. My mono out is a little low relative, but if you look at my fader on the left side, it looks like I could go up a little bit more relative. So basically what you're trying to achieve here is to use this test tone to get the same voltage coming out the left side as on the right side when these two faders are assumed to be equal. Okay? And what you don't want to do is to set these at what they call the unity gain marks and assume that you're getting the same output. Because if you insert a compressor on the right and left in stereo, you're going to be hitting it harder on one side than the other, and that might become an issue. Okay, especially when you're panning stuff. Okay, well, that's about all I have right now. The other thing is, you also want to, instead of having your left and right, the test tone can also check the functionality of your monitors. And as I can pull this up, I can bring up groups 1 through 4. or not 1 through 4, but auxiliaries 1 and 2, and I can bring up this fader okay. In order to test it with the monitors, it has to be after fader level, and that's where our 0 VU comes out right there, okay? And taking a look at this, notice how it's right at the 0 mark. And then we can take a look at number 2, bring that up till it hits 0. And you can see that on the fader are the rotary knob that is exactly right at 0. We can also do that for the next one. Okay, we don't have anything coming through because I don't have 3 and 4 pushed. I have 1 and 2. So now we're going to push down 3 and 4 aux. And you can see there it is coming through. And there it is coming through. Now what happens when I push down both of them? It's basically going across both sides. Okay, so some of the things you can do when you're using this for your master outputs on your monitors is to understand how much you have to turn this knob in order for it to drop 6 decibels. So why don't I try that? Let's go down 6 dB and see where this knob ends up. It ends up at 12 o'clock. So if I go from 0 and I rotate back until I'm down 6 dB, I go to 12 o'clock. And then the other thing we can do, we can turn it back up. Sometimes I don't like running it up at this level. Sometimes I like running it at 12 o'clock. And if I do that, it's good to know that by turning it back 6 decibels, that it's about 10:30 that I get 6 decibels taken away when you go from 12 o'clock to 10:30. And if I was to go from 12 o'clock, let's say I want to drop it 10 decibels, that's almost 9:30. If I go down to 9 o'clock, that's a minus 16 decibels. So it's kind of good to know that. And if I want to go down 10 decibels, from 0 to the second white knob, that's 10 decibels down. And it's good to know that these little white tick marks, what is the dB difference? Let's go back one white tick mark. How much does that turn our how many dBs does it remove? Right there you can see it's taken off 3 dB from here to here. Okay? And it might be even a little bit more than that. Alrighty, so that's a couple things you can do with the test tone without even connecting it to anything else, just to check out the calibration of your outputs and putting them in balance. Like, for example, you're making sure that the subs are all producing the exact same voltage. Okay, so, and you'll notice that my unity gain marks have been moved on my tape. They're slightly different than the original manufacturer's unity gain marks. And these things can change because the voltage changes, because the resistance inside this entire strip can change. Okay? And I've even taken it, like right here, you'll see where it's off. Probably the biggest difference is right here, and that's a 3 decibel difference. I've actually taken it down 10 decibels and noticed that this difference between here and here is actually mirrored down here. So that minus 10 is actually a little bit lower than 10. So what that means is in this strip, there's probably less resistance than what you find in this one here, or the values of the resistors have changed. like you'll see in some of the resistors, they'll have like a 3% plus or minus, or 5% plus or minus. And there's just a lot of resistors in these two strips, and those little variables can change over time. And so in order to get your gain structure to be accurate, it's good to know that you're producing the exact same output for each one of these, okay? So anyway, that's what I've got so far, and I hope this helps, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll try to come up with some other videos on the GL2400 Allen Heath.